Rome was never just a city of marble temples and military legions. It was a place haunted by invisible forces, spirits lurking in doorways, gods watching from the sky, demons crawling through the sewers beneath the streets. Every Roman, from the wealthiest senator to the poorest slave, lived in a world where the supernatural was not a matter of belief, but of fact. Magic was real, curses worked, and the boundary between the living world and the realm of the dead was thin, permeable, and terrifyingly close. This was not the religion of grand state ceremonies and public festivals. That religion, the official cult of Jupiter, Mars, and the Emperor, existed certainly. It was performed in temples, led by priests, and sanctioned by law. But it was also cold, distant, and impersonal. The gods of the state demanded sacrifices, respect, and ritual correctness. But they did not involve themselves in the messy, intimate problems of everyday life. They did not help you win a court case. They did not punish a cheating lover. They did not stop a rival shopkeeper from stealing your customers. For those problems, Romans turned to something else: private magic.
Magic in Rome occupied a strange legal and social space. It was not quite illegal, not quite respectable. The state tolerated it as long as it remained private, as long as it did not threaten public order or target emperors and officials. But it was also dangerous, socially suspect, and associated with foreigners, women, and the lower classes, groups that Roman elites viewed with suspicion. To admit openly that you had used magic was to risk mockery, legal trouble, or worse. And yet thousands of Romans, perhaps tens of thousands, engaged in magical practices regularly, secretly, desperately. They consulted fortune tellers. They purchased amulets. They recited spells. And when they wanted to truly harm someone, when hatred and desperation reached a breaking point, they created curse tablets. These tablets, known in Latin as defixiones, were thin sheets of lead inscribed with spells, prayers, and invocations. They were not religious offerings in the traditional sense. They were weapons, magical weapons, designed to bind, cripple, humiliate, or destroy a specific person. And once the spell was written, the tablet had to be delivered to the spirits who would carry out the curse. But how do you deliver a message to a demon?
The answer, Romans believed, was simple. You place it where demons live. And demons, according to Roman belief, lived in the darkest, filth-filled, most spiritually contaminated places in the city. They lived in graveyards, where the restless dead wandered. They lived in abandoned buildings where shadows gathered and light could not reach. And most of all, they lived in the sewers, in the underground channels that carried human waste, blood, and corruption beneath Rome's streets. The Roman sewer system, particularly the Cloaca Maxima, the Great Sewer, was an engineering marvel. Built during the Republic, it drained the Forum, channeled rainwater, and carried waste from public latrines into the Tiber River. Romans were rightly proud of it, but they also feared it. Sewers were liminal spaces, neither fully above ground nor entirely below, neither part of the living city nor entirely separate from it. They existed in a twilight realm where human filth mixed with stagnant water, where rats scurried through tunnels, and where the smell of decay was overwhelming. Romans believed that spirits, especially malevolent ones, were drawn to such places. The dead, the angry, the rejected, the cursed, all of them gathered in the darkness beneath the city.
This belief was not metaphorical. Romans genuinely thought that demons inhabited sewers, that they traveled through water and waste, and that they could be summoned, bribed, or commanded if approached correctly. The underworld, Hades, Dispater's realm, was not some distant afterlife. It was beneath your feet, accessible through cracks in the earth, through graves, and through the channels that carried human impurity away from the living world. Latrines, therefore, were not just toilets, they were portals. Public latrines in Rome were communal, open spaces where dozens of people sat side by side on stone or wooden benches with holes cut into them. Waste fell into channels below, where running water carried it into the sewer system. There was no privacy, no separation between the active excretion and the social world. Romans chatted, conducted business, and exchanged gossip while relieving themselves. It was perfectly normal. But beneath the surface, the latrine was a place of spiritual danger. Excrement, in Roman religious thought, was not just waste, it was pollution. It represented the body's impurities, expelled and rejected. And in a culture obsessed with ritual cleanliness, with boundaries between sacred and profane, the latrine was one of the most profane spaces imaginable.
This made it perfect for dark magic. If you wanted to curse someone, if you wanted to drag them down, humiliate them, bind them, destroy them, you did not take your curse tablet to a temple. You did not leave it at a shrine. You took it to the latrine, where demons waited in the filth below, and you dropped it into the darkness. The logic was brutal and elegant. Let the demons who dwell in excrement carry this curse to its target. Let the spirits of the sewer rise through the waste channels and deliver my hatred. Let my enemy be dragged down into the filth where they belong. This was not superstition in the sense of vague, unexamined belief. This was a system, coherent, internally logical, and deeply embedded in Roman culture. Curse tablets were common, latrines were everywhere, and the belief that sewers connected the living world to the underworld was so widespread that it shaped urban planning, religious rituals, and daily behavior. Romans feared the supernatural because they believed the supernatural was real, and they used that fear, weaponized it, turned it into a tool for revenge, justice, and destruction. The curse tablet was born from this worldview, and the toilet became its delivery system. The curse tablet was a marvel of dark craftsmanship, simple in design, devastating in purpose. It was not a work of art. It was not meant to be beautiful. It was meant to bind, to harm, to control. And every element of its construction, from the material to the ritual, was chosen with brutal intentionality. The process began with lead. Lead sheets were sold by metal workers throughout Rome. They were cheap, abundant, and easy to work with. A thin sheet of lead could be cut with a knife, inscribed with a stylus or nail, and folded without cracking. But lead was not chosen merely for practical reasons. It had symbolic power. In Roman thought, lead was a heavy, cold, lifeless metal. It did not shine like gold or silver. It did not resonate like bronze. It was dull, gray, and oppressive. Alchemists and natural philosophers associated it with Saturn, the slowest planet, and with the underworld itself. Lead was chthonic, belonging to the earth, to the depths, to the realm of the dead. It was the perfect material for a curse because it embodied the qualities the curse maker wanted to impose: heaviness, coldness, immobility, death. Once the lead sheet was acquired, the spell writing began. Curse tablets followed certain conventions, though no two were exactly alike. Most began with an invocation, a call to the spirits, demons, or gods who would carry out the curse.
These invocations were formulaic, drawn from magical handbooks, oral tradition, or personal improvisation. Common openings included, "I call upon you, spirits of the underworld, by the powers of Hecate, queen of shadows. Demons who dwell in darkness, hear my words." The invocation was followed by the victim's name. This was crucial. Magic in the ancient world was intensely personal. You could not curse everyone who wronged me or my enemies in general. You had to name the target, bind the spell to a specific individual. Sometimes the curse maker included the victim's mother's name as well, a detail believed to strengthen the magical link. If the victim's true name was unknown, a description might suffice. "The man who stole my cloak," or "the woman with the crooked nose who lives near the baker's shop."
Next came the curse itself, the specific harm desired. This was where the curse maker's rage, desperation, and creativity became visible. Some curses were straightforward. "Bind his hands so he cannot work. Freeze her tongue so she cannot speak against me. Make him fall and break his legs." Others were elaborate, almost poetic in their viciousness. "Let his limbs grow cold and useless. Let his breath catch in his throat. Let his mind cloud with confusion. Let his friends abandon him. Let his business fail. Let his wife turn against him. Let everything he touches rot." The purposes of curse tablets varied widely. Some were instruments of revenge, targeting thieves, rivals, or those who had caused humiliation. Others were tools of competition, gladiators cursing their opponents, charioteers sabotaging rivals, merchants undermining competitors. Love spells, though technically a separate category, often appeared on curse tablets as well. Attempts to bind a reluctant lover, punish a cheating partner, or destroy a romantic rival. Legal curses were especially common. Romans lived in a litigious society where court cases could ruin lives. A citizen facing trial might commission a curse tablet targeting the prosecutor, the judge, or key witnesses. The goal was not just to win the case, but to bind the opposition, to render them unable to speak eloquently, to confuse their arguments, to make them appear foolish and untrustworthy before the court. Once the spell was written, the ritual construction began. The tablet was folded, sometimes multiple times, to seal the words inside. This folding was symbolic. It represented the binding of the victim, the trapping of their agency within the lead. Some curse makers pierced the tablet with iron nails, driving them through the metal to nail down the spell, to fix it in place, to ensure it could not be undone. Others bound the tablet with thread or cord, wrapping it tightly, creating a physical representation of constraint and immobility. In some cases, additional objects were included. Small figurines made of wax or clay, shaped to resemble the victim, were sometimes bound alongside the tablet. These figurines might be pierced with nails, twisted into painful positions, or inscribed with the victim's name. The logic was sympathetic magic. Harm the image, and you harm the person. But the spell was not complete until it was delivered. A curse tablet was useless if it remained in the curse maker's possession. It had to be placed somewhere, hidden, buried, thrown, where the spirits could find it, read it, and act upon it. And the location mattered. Graveyards were popular, especially graves of those who had died violently or prematurely. Such spirits, Romans believed, were restless, angry, and eager to serve anyone who offered them purpose. Wells were another common location. Water was seen as a conduit to the underworld, and objects thrown into wells descended into darkness, carried by currents to places humans could not follow.
But the most effective location, the one that maximized the curse's power and ensured swift delivery to the spirits who could act upon it, was the latrine. The latrine was perfect because it combined multiple elements of supernatural power. It was dark, it was filthy, it was connected to the sewer system, and thus to the underworld, and it was a space of human vulnerability. Romans relieving themselves were at their most exposed, their most undignified. To drop a curse tablet into the latrine was to symbolically drag the victim into that same state of exposure and humiliation. The final step was simple. The curse maker would visit a public latrine, wait for a moment of relative privacy, and drop the folded, nail-pierced lead tablet into the hole. It would fall into the waste channel below, carried by running water into the sewer, where it would sink into the accumulated filth, and where the demons, according to belief, would find it. The curse was now active. The spell had been spoken. The spirits had been invoked, and the victim, unaware, would soon begin to suffer. Or so Romans believed.
The Roman public latrine was an architectural and social marvel, a communal space where citizens from all walks of life gathered, sat side by side on stone benches, and relieved themselves while discussing politics, business, and gossip. It was practical, efficient, and utterly lacking in privacy. But beneath the mundane function of waste disposal lay a deeper, darker belief. The latrine was a gateway to the underworld. This was not a metaphor. Romans genuinely believed that the channels beneath the latrine, the tunnels, pipes, and sewers that carried waste away from the city, were inhabited by spirits. These were not benevolent household gods or distant Olympian deities. These were tonic entities, underworld beings who dwelled in filth, darkness, and corruption. They were demons, restless ghosts, and minor deities who had been rejected, forgotten, or banished from the world above. The Cloaca Maxima, Rome's great sewer, was the heart of this belief. Built in the 6th century BC, it was one of the oldest and most impressive pieces of Roman infrastructure. It drained the swamps that had once covered the Forum, channeled rainwater from the hills, and carried waste from latrines throughout the city into the Tiber River. Engineers marveled at its construction. Poets praised it as proof of Roman ingenuity. But ordinary citizens feared it.
The Cloaca Maxima was vast, dark, and labyrinthine. Its main tunnel was large enough for a person to walk through, and its secondary channels branched throughout the city like veins. No one maintained it regularly. No one cleaned it thoroughly. It was a place of perpetual darkness, filled with stagnant water, rotting organic matter, and the accumulated waste of a million people. Romans believed that this darkness was not empty, it was populated. According to popular belief, spirits entered the sewer system through graves, through cracks in the earth, and through the latrine itself. Once inside, they could travel anywhere the water flowed. They could rise through the waste channels, emerge in unexpected places, and interact with the living world. Some were harmless, mere shadows wandering aimlessly. Others were malevolent, eager to cause harm, spread disease, or drag the living down into their realm. This belief was reinforced by religious tradition. The goddess Cloacina, literally the purifier, was worshipped as the protector of the sewer system. She had a small shrine near the Forum, and Romans made offerings to her to ensure that the sewers functioned properly and that the spirits within remained contained. But Cloacina was not a comforting deity. She was chthonic, associated with pollution and purification in equal measure. Praying to her was an acknowledgement that the sewers were not just physical infrastructure, they were spiritual territory.
Excrement itself was viewed as spiritually dangerous. In Roman religious law, anything that left the body, blood, saliva, nail clippings, hair, and especially feces, was considered polluted. It carried the individual's essence, but in a degraded, rejected form. This made it powerful for magic. A curse maker who possessed a fragment of the victim's hair, a drop of their blood, or even a piece of their discarded waste could use it to strengthen a spell, creating a direct link between the curse and the target. The latrine, therefore, was not just a place where waste was disposed of. It was a space of symbolic contamination, where the boundary between self and pollution was crossed, where the body's rejected parts entered the realm of the spirits. Dropping a cursed tablet into the latrine intensified all of these meanings. The tablet fell into the waste channel, where it was surrounded by excrement, carried by water that flowed downward, always downward, toward the underworld. The spirits dwelling in the sewers would find the tablet, read the curse, or at least sense its intent, and act upon it. The magical logic was brutal. Drag my enemy down into the filth where they belong.
This was not just about harming the victim physically. It was about degrading them spiritually, socially, symbolically. To curse someone through the latrine was to associate them with waste, with pollution, with the lowest, most humiliating aspects of human existence. It was to say, "You are filth, and I am sending you to the place where filth belongs." Latrines became, in effect, unofficial drop boxes for dark magic throughout the empire. In cities, towns, and military forts, wherever Romans built public toilets, curse tablets accumulated in the waste channels below. Archaeologists have found them in Britain, Gaul, Spain, North Africa, Greece, and Italy. Wherever Rome's infrastructure reached, so too did the practice of toilet curses. The ubiquity of the practice suggests that it was not confined to a single social class or region. This was not an exotic foreign import or a rare occult ritual. It was mainstream, widely known, and widely practiced. Romans from all backgrounds, merchants, soldiers, slaves, aristocrats, believed that the latrine could deliver curses to the underworld, and they were not shy about using it.
The curse tablets are remarkable, not just for their magical function, but for what they reveal about the people who created them. These were not abstract spells copied from ancient grimoires. They were intensely personal, written in moments of rage, heartbreak, jealousy, and desperation. Reading them, transcribed, translated, preserved by archaeologists, is like peering directly into the emotional lives of ordinary Romans. The language is raw. One tablet, found in a sewer channel in Roman Britain, reads, "I curse Trutia Maria and her life and mind and memory and liver and lungs mixed up together, and her words, thoughts, and memory. Thus may she be unable to speak what things are concealed." This is not poetic. It is anatomical, almost clinical in its specificity. The curse maker wanted to bind not just the victim's body, but her internal organs, her thoughts, her very ability to communicate. The repetition, life and mind and memory and liver and lungs, suggests obsessive focus, a person consumed by the need to silence someone who had wronged them.
Another tablet, discovered in a latrine in Carthage, curses a rival in a legal dispute. "Bind the hands of Lucius, that he may not write. Bind his tongue, that he may not speak. Bind his feet, that he may not walk to the forum. Let him stumble before the judge. Let his words fall into confusion."
This was not just about winning a court case. It was about total domination. The curse maker wanted to render the opponent helpless, to strip him of every tool he might use to defend himself. And the instruction to stumble before the judge revealed the public humiliation aspect. It was not enough for the victim to lose. He had to be seen losing, to be embarrassed, degraded in front of the community. Love curses were among the most desperate and disturbing. One tablet from Rome itself reads, "Let Quintus burn for me. Let him find no rest. Let him desire me day and night. Let him come to me, begging, crawling, unable to think of anything but me."
This was not romance. This was coercion, an attempt to magically compel someone into an obsessive, destructive attachment. The language of burning, "let him burn," was common in love magic, reflecting the belief that desire was a kind of fever, a consuming fire that could be ignited through spells. But when love spells failed, or when relationships ended badly, the tablets turned vicious. May her beauty rot, may her skin blister and peel, may men turn from her in disgust, may her hair fall out, may her teeth blacken, may she be alone, unwanted, rejected by all who once desired her. This curse, found in a latrine in Pompeii, was written by someone who had been spurned. The specificity of the harm, targeting beauty, social desirability, physical attractiveness, reveals the curse maker's pain and jealousy. If I cannot have her, the logic goes, then no one will.
Competitive curses were equally common. Gladiators, charioteers, and athletes all faced dangerous rivals, and curse tablets were seen as legitimate tools of competition. One famous tablet, found in a circus, a chariot racing arena in Rome, reads, "I bind the horses of the blue faction. Let their legs tangle. Let them stumble and fall. Let the charioteer crash into the wall. Let his bones break. Let the crowd mock him." Chariot racing was Rome's most popular sport, and the factions, blues, greens, reds, and whites, had fanatical supporters. This curse was not just about one race, it was about humiliating an entire faction, ruining their reputation, and satisfying the bloodlust of rival fans. Some tablets included drawings, crude sketches of the victim, bound with chains or pierced with nails, accompanied the written spells. These images were not decorative, they were part of the curse, visual representations of the harm being invoked. One tablet from Roman Britain shows a figure with their hands bound behind their back, their mouth stitched shut, their legs twisted at unnatural angles. Beside the drawing, the text reads, "As this image is bound, so too is Marcus bound. As this mouth is sealed, so too is Marcus unable to speak."
The psychological depth of these tablets is striking. They reveal people in moments of absolute vulnerability, betrayed, humiliated, desperate for justice or revenge. They show that ancient Romans, despite living in a society we often romanticize as disciplined and stoic, were driven by the same emotions that drive humans today: jealousy, rage, heartbreak, fear. And they show that when Romans felt powerless, when the legal system failed them, when social norms constrained them, when they had no other recourse, they turned to magic. The toilet context intensified the emotional charge of these curses. To throw a cursed tablet into a latrine was to perform an act of ultimate contempt. You were not just wishing harm on someone, you were symbolically throwing them into filth, into the place where demons lived, into the underworld itself. It was a declaration. You are waste, and I am flushing you away. These were not the actions of elites conducting elaborate rituals in secret temples. These were ordinary people, shopkeepers, laborers, soldiers, slaves, using the tools available to them to fight back against a world that often felt cruel, unfair, and indifferent to their suffering. The cursed tablets, tossed into toilets throughout the empire, were their weapons, and the sewers carried their rage into the darkness below.
The evidence is not just literary or mythological. It is physical, tangible, and astonishingly abundant. Archaeologists excavating Roman latrines, sewers, and wells have uncovered thousands of curse tablets, many of them perfectly preserved by the anaerobic conditions of submerged waste. These discoveries have transformed our understanding of Roman magic, revealing that curse tablets were not rare occurrences, but a widespread, routine practice embedded in daily life throughout the empire. One of the most famous collections comes from Bath, England, ancient Aquae Sulis, a spa town built around natural hot springs. The springs were sacred to the goddess Sulis Minerva, and Romans believed they connected to the underworld. Between the 1970s and 1990s, archaeologists excavating the sacred spring uncovered more than 130 curse tablets, most of them thrown into the water as offerings to the goddess. The Bath tablets are remarkable for their specificity and their focus on theft. Many curse victims who had lost personal items, cloaks, gloves, money, and were asking the goddess to punish the thieves. One tablet reads, "To the goddess Sulis Minerva, I give to you the person who has stolen my bronze vessel. Whether man or woman, whether slave or free, I ask that you punish them. Let them bring it to your temple, and let them pay the price."
Another, more vindictive, reads, "I curse the one who stole my cloak at the baths. May they lose their mind. May they be unable to eat or sleep. May they waste away until they return what is mine." These were not wealthy aristocrats losing valuable treasures. These were ordinary people losing everyday items that for them represented significant value. The desperation in the language is palpable. In Rome itself, sewer excavations have yielded dozens of curse tablets mixed with pottery shards, animal bones, coins, and other debris. One tablet, discovered in a waste channel beneath the Forum, cursed a business rival. "I bind the shop of Gaius. Let no customers enter. Let his goods spoil. Let his profits turn to dust. Let him be forgotten and abandoned." This was economic warfare, conducted through magic. The curse maker, presumably a competing merchant, was attempting to destroy Gaius's livelihood, not through physical sabotage or legal action, but through supernatural intervention.
Another tablet from Rome targeted a charioteer from the Green faction. "Bind the legs of the horses. Trip the driver into the ground. Let him fall hard and break his bones. Let the crowd see his defeat." The instruction to trip him into the ground reveals the violent fantasies embedded in these curses. This was not just about winning a race. It was about public humiliation, physical harm, and the satisfaction of watching a rival suffer. In North Africa, particularly in Carthage, archaeologists have found curse tablets in latrines, wells, and even buried beneath the floors of homes. One tablet, written in both Latin and Punic, the local Carthaginian language, cursed a woman named Septima. "Let Septima's tongue be heavy. Let her words fail. Let her beauty fade. Let men turn from her. Let her be alone." This multilingual curse suggests that magical practices crossed cultural boundaries, blending Roman and indigenous traditions. The focus on silencing the victim, "let her tongue be heavy," was common in curses targeting women, reflecting anxieties about female speech, gossip, and social power.
In Roman Britain, beyond Bath, Curse tablets have been found in latrines at military forts along Hadrian's Wall. Soldiers, far from home and surrounded by hostile tribes, turned to magic for protection, revenge, and competition. One tablet from a fort near modern-day Newcastle reads, "I curse the one who stole my rations. May his stomach twist in pain. May he vomit blood. May he die screaming." This curse, likely written by a soldier whose food had been stolen by a comrade, reveals the harsh realities of military life. Trust was fragile, resources were scarce, and when the formal chain of command failed to deliver justice, soldiers turned to the gods or demons for retribution. Perhaps the most chilling discovery comes from Pompeii, where volcanic ash preserved not just buildings and bodies, but curse tablets as well. One tablet found in a latrine near the Forum reads, "I call upon the spirits of the dead. Drag Marcus into the underworld. Let him suffer as I have suffered. Let him know no peace." This curse was written shortly before the eruption of Vesuvius in 79 AD. Marcus, whoever he was, may have died in the disaster, along with the person who cursed him. The tablet, preserved in ash, stands as a final testament to Roman rage frozen in time.
These discoveries are not anomalies. They represent a consistent pattern across the entire empire, spanning centuries. Curse tablets have been found in every Roman province, in cities large and small, and military forts, civilian settlements, and rural shrines. The practice was ubiquitous, suggesting that it was not just socially accepted, but culturally ingrained. And the latrines, again and again, emerge as the primary location for these deposits. The sewer channels beneath Roman toilets have yielded more curse tablets than any other site, confirming that Romans genuinely believed the toilet was the best place to deliver a curse to the underworld. The tablets themselves, inscribed with rage, heartbreak, jealousy, and desperation, reveal a society far more complex than the marble statues and triumphal arches suggest. This was not a civilization of cold, rational Stoics. This was a world filled with fear, emotion, and a deep belief that invisible forces shaped human destiny. And when those forces needed to be invoked, when hatred needed to be weaponized, Romans knew exactly where to go. To the toilet, where demons waited in the darkness below.
The curse tablets, tossed into toilets and buried in sewage, were never meant to survive. They were meant to sink, to dissolve, to be carried away by water and filth into the underworld. The fact that they have survived, thousands of them, preserved in mud, ash, and anaerobic sludge, is a historical accident. But it is also a gift. These tablets offer a window into Roman life that no triumphal arch, no imperial biography, no marble statue could ever provide. They show us that ancient Rome was not just a story of emperors and conquests. It was a story of ordinary people living ordinary lives, filled with the same anxieties, resentments, and emotional turmoil that define human existence in any era. The curse tablets reveal a society deeply insecure. Romans lived in a world without modern legal protections, without reliable police forces, without transparent justice systems. If someone wronged you, stole your property, slandered your reputation, cheated you in business, you had limited recourse. You could take them to court, but trials were expensive, slow, and often biased in favor of the wealthy and well-connected. You could confront them directly, but that risked violence, social scandal, or further humiliation. So, many Romans turned to magic. Curse tablets were a form of self-help justice, a way to fight back when the formal systems failed. They reveal a profound lack of trust in institutions, a belief that the only way to achieve justice was to invoke supernatural forces.
The tablets also expose the dark underside of Roman social life. Beneath the public rituals, the communal baths, the shared meals, there was constant tension, competition, jealousy, betrayal. Neighbors cursed neighbors. Business partners cursed one another. Lovers cursed rivals. Gladiators cursed opponents. The tablets document a society where everyone was a potential enemy, where social bonds were fragile, and where resentment simmered just beneath the surface. The focus on humiliation is particularly revealing. Many curse tablets did not simply ask for the victim's death. They asked for public degradation. Let him stumble before the judge. Let his words fail. Let the crowd mock him. This obsession with reputation, with dignitas, was central to Roman identity. Honor was everything. To be humiliated publicly was, in some ways, worse than dying. The curse tablets weaponized this cultural anxiety, using magic to destroy not just bodies, but reputations. The latrine context adds another layer of meaning. Excrement in Roman thought was the ultimate symbol of rejection and degradation. By throwing a curse into the toilet, the curse maker was performing a symbolic act of erasure. You are waste, and I am disposing of you. This reflects a deeper cultural belief in symbolic contamination, the idea that physical impurity could carry moral and spiritual significance. The curse tablets also humanize the Romans in unexpected ways. Reading these spells, you encounter people in moments of raw emotion, heartbroken, enraged, desperate, vulnerable. You see a betrayed lover pleading with demons to bring back a partner. You see a soldier whose rations were stolen, calling down curses on the thief. You see a merchant terrified that a rival will destroy his business. These are not the marble-faced stoics of Roman philosophy. These are real people, struggling, suffering, and fighting back with the only tools they had. And yet, the tablets also reveal the limits of that humanity. The curses are often cruel, vindictive, and disproportionate. A stolen cloak does not justify wishing someone's death. A romantic rejection does not warrant invoking demons to destroy a person's beauty and health. The curse tablets show that Roman culture, for all its achievements, had normalized a level of emotional violence that could be shocking to modern sensibilities. The practice of toilet curses also highlights the blurred line between religion and magic in the ancient world. Romans did not see these activities as separate categories. Invoking the gods, making offerings, performing rituals, all of this was part of a continuum that included curse tablets, amulets, and spells. The same person who sacrificed to Jupiter in the morning might drop a curse tablet into a latrine in the evening. There was no contradiction. Both were ways of engaging with the supernatural.
Finally, the curse tablets remind us that Rome's greatness was built on infrastructure, not just roads and aqueducts, but sewers. And those sewers, designed to carry away waste and keep the city clean, became something else, battlegrounds for invisible wars. The toilets of Rome were not just functional spaces. They were sites of ritual, of magic, of human desperation. In the end, the Roman curse tablets teach us something profound about human nature. When people feel powerless, when they believe the world has wronged them, they will reach for any tool available, even if that tool is a piece of lead, a few words of Latin, and a drop into a toilet. The demons, of course, never answered. The curses almost certainly never worked. But the act itself, the writing, the folding, the piercing, the throwing, provided something invaluable, a sense of agency, however illusory. The curse maker was doing something. They were fighting back. They were not passive victims. They were participants in their own story, even if the story was one of superstition and desperation. And so, the tablets fell into the sewers. They sank into the filth. They were carried away by water, into the darkness, into the underworld, or at least into the mud, where they would wait, silently, for 2,000 years, until archaeologists pulled them back into the light.
Rome's toilets were not just for waste. They were portals, delivery systems, battlegrounds. They were places where hatred became tangible, where rage became ritual, and where ordinary people, armed with nothing but lead and words, believed they could command demons to fight on their behalf. The curses may not have worked, but the belief was real. And that belief, preserved in lead and recovered from sewage, tells us more about Rome and about ourselves than 1,000 triumphal arches ever could.